What's going on, folks? Okay, so in this video, I'm gonna give you 3 simple tips in order to reduce your injury risk during your workouts. Let's get right into it. So the first tip is to build a solid base. What this looks like is doing higher repetitions instead of lower repetitions when you are starting off. Even though you may want to build strength and you think that you need to go straight into lower repetitions in order to do that, you can still build strength doing higher repetitions. Plus, the higher repetitions will allow your body to adapt and adjust a little bit more over time because your tendons and your ligaments tend to take a little bit more time to adapt to stress and load than your muscles actually do. So you want to give that a little bit more time so that way whenever you do start to lift the heavier loads, they're already ready and adapted and ready to pretty much perform under those heavier loads. So the same thing applies to not only resistance training, but also cardio. So any type of running, biking, rowing, any type of cardiovascular movements that you're doing, you want to build up the volume of that one as well. So it's kind of different. You start off with higher repetitions for your strength stuff, and then you build to lower repetitions. For the conditioning work, you start with lower amounts of volume, and then you build up your volume to whatever distance you actually need to go. My philosophy with cardio is just only go to the amount of distance that you really need to go to in order to execute that specific task that you're trying to accomplish. If anything more is just adding extra wear and tear onto your body. But keeping it back to the main point, you want to make sure, let's just say if your total run volume has been, or you're trying to build up to, let's just say 5 miles within a week of running, you want to start off maybe with 1 mile for 4 weeks. See how your body responds, and then increase it to maybe 1.5 miles the next 4 weeks, 2 miles the next 4 weeks, and you can do it every other week, but it just depends on how your body's responding to increasing loads. So you have to be a little bit more intuitive to how your body's responding. Are you even more achy? Are you recovering a little bit faster? If you're recovering faster, okay, add more volume. If you're more achy, you may want to keep it where you are or maybe reduce the volume a little bit, or maybe run every other week. So you have to be very in tune with your body and have a game plan on how you want to tackle it, because sincerely, like, there's no one simple way in order to increase the amount of volume, or because it varies on the type of person. It varies on the stress load on your bodies. It varies on the accessory movements that you're doing in your strength workouts. It varies on your nutrition status, your sleep status, your hydration status. There's so many different factors that go into how your body's going to respond to that stress. With everything else being equal, if you keep all those outside factors consistent, then you don't really have to worry about any of those contributing too much. Maybe it's just that the amount of volume that you need to adjust. So that was a big long rant, but the takeaway here is make sure you slowly increase your volume over time and don't just try and ramp up really quickly. Let's just say, I know a lot of people like to do 5K runs just to start off and get themselves into running, or if they have something that they want to do for weight loss. It's okay to start to plan a little bit sooner for it and not just trying to really get it all done so quickly, because that's typically what I see whenever people start to get a ton of shin splints, a lot of knee pain, ankle, hip, back. All those different aches can come from just increasing too much run volume too quickly. So just take it slowly, build gradually, listen to your body. So the second tip is to improve range of motion. One of the biggest contributors to injuries is trying to force your body into a range of motion that is not necessarily prepared for, or doesn't even have, under load. So one of the biggest culprits is overhead squats. A lot of people in the CrossFit realm or the functional fitness realm, or just trying to do overhead squats for weightlifting, and they're recreational, they try and go into it and they're just like, oh, I'm just gonna push it. But they don't have the range of motion required for that movement. So they're slowly wearing away at that shoulder girdle, and sometimes it can irritate the upper back, lower back, and even the neck as well, because they all play a factor into this whole entire chain that's going on here. So the biggest thing is to improve your range of motion limitations, and while you're improving those range of motion limitations, do alternative exercises, or at least reduce the amount of load that you're doing for those exercises, so at least the stress and strain from those exercises aren't as intense. So what this will look like if you need overhead mobility, Work on getting your thoracic extension a little bit better, so your upper back extension a little bit better. Work on your shoulder mobility, work on your shoulder stability, because sometimes for range of motion, it's not necessarily just a shoulder mobility issue. It could be a shoulder stability issue that's lacking there, or the activation of certain muscles to keep you in a great position and to inhibit muscles that are pulling you into a not so advantageous position when you're trying to get into an overhead squat. So the biggest thing here, improve your range of motion limitations, and this is going to allow you to reduce the stress and strain, excessive stress and strain, when you're loading your body up under certain loads or barbell loads or doing squats or whatever it may be. So yeah, just reduce your range of motion limitations with mobility work and sometimes stability work, depending on what you find to be your weak link. And the last one, but not least important one, is to use a structured training program. So one of the biggest culprits is too much variation or not tracking your volume and intensity of your workouts. And one of the main things is not tracking the volume and intensity of your workouts. Sometimes you can be doing way too much volume too soon, or you can be doing too much volume consistently, too much intensity consistently, and not enough variation in your training programs. When you do too much intensity over an extended period of time, your body continues to wear down and you don't give it time to adapt and adjust to make progress in order to be able to handle those loads, because a training effect detrains you and you have to recover from that in order to be in a better place to tolerate that training load the next time. But if you're constantly beating your body down with that same intensity, you're not going to be able to come back and recover from it enough to be able to tolerate that stress over an extended period of time. The same thing goes within the volume, and the same thing goes with movement variations. If you're constantly doing the same movement variations over and over and over and over again without any break in between or any variation, then that also can put excessive stress and strain on certain areas and joints in your body. So you want to make sure you vary up the volume, vary up the intensity, and vary up the movements that you're doing in your workouts. So what that would look like would be, during one training cycle, you're doing higher repetitions. Let's just say, like we said earlier, higher repetitions to begin with. Let's just say for all of our exercises, we're doing 10 repetitions. And then for the next training cycle, all of our exercises, we're doing 5 repetitions. This would be a periodized type of training program. So we're doing 10 repetitions. So that's going to coincide with lighter intensities, or less intensity, not lighter intensities, but less intensity. And then the 5 repetitions is going to be higher intensity, because now we can lift more load because we're doing less repetitions here. The same thing goes after we do that. Let's just say we're doing the same movements. For the next training cycle, let's say we go back up to 10 repetitions, but this time instead of doing back squats, we're doing front squats, or we're doing Zercher squats, a different squat variation to allow some of the stress on our bodies to kind of adapt and recover and be able to come back the next training cycle or 2 months down the line and do back squats and still be okay and effective with those movements and potentially improve our performance in that. And then also just having movement variations, doing different variations of squats, different variations of lunges, different variations of pressing movements and pulling movements, allow you to have a more well-rounded and capable body in order to tolerate different stresses that you may encounter in your workouts. So the big takeaway here is to make sure that you are following a structured training program, and make sure you monitor the volume, the intensity, and the variation in that program. There you have it. Those are my simple 3 strategies. There are plenty other strategies that you can utilize, but these are just some basic things that you can keep in mind when you're doing your workouts and going through your training program. How you can reduce your injury risk and pretty much keep training for an extended period of time. All right, so if you have any other questions, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next video.